You know, I'm getting a little tired of these unannounced visits by VIPs who will not tell us why they're coming or what they're going to do when they get here.
I'll leave it to you to try and take all the fun out of life. I mean, come on, where's your sense of mystery, of adventure?
Are you trying to cheer me up?
No, sir, wouldn't dream of it.
Good. I hate being cheered up. It's depressing.
So in that case, we're all going to die horrible, painful, lingering deaths.
Thank you. I feel so much better now.
Because you won't tell yourself about it.
I try never to get involved in my own life. Too much trouble.
This is a very strange place you have here, Mr. Garibaldi.
Thank you.
Against the galaxy's most powerful enemy, Sheridan has a secret weapon. But will it be enough?
Then suicide.
Punch it! On an all-new... Hang on! Babylon 5.
You have transmissions holding.
Patch incoming signal. Full audio and video decode.
Purple files accessed.
What you are about to see has never been shown to anyone outside the Great Council.
Hello, everyone out there in podcast land. Welcome to Gray 17, a Babylon 5 podcast, part of the Front Row Network and NPR Illinois Community Voices. We are a group of newbies watching every episode for the first time and a group of first ones who have watched this way too many times. And we're here. We are on episode 45, which means this is season 3. We have moved headlong into the year 2260, the year we failed, thanks Ivanova. And we are here to talk about matters of honor. I am Scott, and with me is...
Jessi. Emily.
Mike.
Kevin.
Nicole.
Andrew.
And Justin.
Before we get started with season 3, a reminder, please check out our social medias. We have Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you're listening to this in the audio version, we have a YouTube version. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, we have an audio podcast. All links are down below. Also, we do have a Patreon, which also has a Discord. So if you are a donor on Patreon at any level, you get access to our Discord. They've been chatting recently about the B5 animated movie and a whole bunch of other stuff. And then we also have merch down below as well. Finally, on the Patreon front, thank you to the members of our Grace Council, our producers. They are listed down below. We had 2 new producers join us, Sarah and Andre. So thank you so much for your support. And you can check out all those names in the show notes. Along with that, we love when you send us reviews. So please go to Apple, Audible, Podchaser, whatever, and give us a review. It really does help us. And we just got one in, guys. That is another 5-star from Bryant Burnett. Bryant says, and I quote, "Great for the initiated and newcomers alike. A friend who I share B5 fandom with recommended this podcast to me, and I'm glad I followed his recommendation. The podcast is a mix of hosts who have seen the show already and who are brand new to it. This proves to be a fascinating way to revisit the series for somebody like me, and I assume it would also be a lot of fun for sci-fi fans who have never watched the series, but want to follow along with some expert guides." I don't know about the expert part, Brian, but thank you. And Brian says, "I look forward to following the podcast to the end of the series and maybe even beyond." Thank you, Brian, for your review. We really do appreciate it. We'll dive into matters of honor, and I believe Nicole has a synopsis for us.
Yes, I do. While an Earth official investigates the mystery ship encountered by Lieutenant Keffer in hyperspace, Lando attempts to sever his ties with Morden. Sheridan also receives a new tool in the fight against the shadows.
That's a wonderful synopsis that we did not steal from the Lurker's Guide, we promise. But we did. Let's go ahead and get into our first impressions from our newbies. And I know we usually get a nice little bump when a new season starts. And also with the news of the new B5 movie coming out, I'm sure some of you are new to this as well. So we will talk to our newbies first. They will give us their impressions. We'll then talk to our first ones who have seen the whole show. And then we'll talk about the episode proper without any spoilers. And once that's done, we'll get the questions, predictions from our newbies. We'll kick them out the airlock, and then we'll talk spoilers about what happens next. And You can assume, being the start of a new season, the Beyond the Rim section is going to have some weight to it. Let's go ahead and get into first impressions from our newbies, and we'll go to Jessi first. First impressions.
Of course, you're going to go to me first.
You're first on my screen.
I'm going to tell you right now, not 100% sure what this episode was about. I watched the whole damn thing. I was extremely confused the whole time. And I think it's just because my brain has stopped working at this point. But I don't know what happened. I know they developed something and a new ship came out, and it was fun times had by all in this household.
You can send your comments to gray17podcasts@gmail.com.
Dude, I don't fucking know. Like, I'm not gonna lie. I sat there, I watched it, I paid attention, but I literally caught myself going, what is happening right now? What is happening right now? Multiple times throughout the episode, which sometimes happens. And then I just catch up. And by the end of the episode, I'm like, oh no, I get it. I'm not tracking in this episode, kind of hoping that if I watch it again, I might pick something. So.
Well, let's go to Emily next. Emily, were you tracking?
Yeah, I think so.
We're gonna find out.
Great times had by all.
I know I struggled with the last few episodes of season 2. Like, I just ended up angry about them. Very, very angry. But I was really worried about starting season 3. I pulled the box out of the little DVD box set, and I was like, there's a new fucking face. And like, seriously, if this spoils it and like I have to wait until halfway through season 3 to figure out who this is, I'm going to be pissed. Thankfully, I didn't have to. They introduced this new guy, and I'm still not sure about him. I keep thinking he's like Robin Hood from like Men in Tights or something. It's a thing.
Scott, I never knew I needed a musical episode of B5 till now, but if we could get the Rangers singing, Rangers in Tights.
That's nice.
Well, pay for that.
JMS is working on the reboot right now. I'm sure we can get an episode done.
Yeah. I actually really like this episode. Again, I'm angry with Londo just because I'm angry with Londo. I think that's going to stick around for quite some time, so I'm trying to get past it. But no, I liked it. I thought it was an interesting way to start a season.
And Nicole, first impressions.
This episode was quite a way to start the third season. Just superficially out the gate, the graphics looked great. In the first opening scene, I was like, these look amazing. New med lab, Garibaldi's a little more bald. New fancy credits. Ivanova's voicing them, so that's kind of cool. I kind of liked Kosh messing with Sheridan a bit. I feel like that was his way of like messing with him and like joking with him at the beginning. We'll talk about that interaction later, but I really got a kick out of that. I'm like, is Kosh low-key funny? So that was kind of fun. I gotta say, this episode I was not expecting the ending when I saw it. And I literally wrote in capitals and highlighted it WTF, and I yelled at the TV. But yeah, overall, I think Cole, I kind of think he's kind of hot, by the way. I like his accent. He's not bad looking. So it's time we got some eye candy in here. Keffer's gone, so we can't look at him. But, we got to have some cuties. And okay, here's my hot take. This is probably the most fucked up thing I'm going to say on this podcast. But when Morden came on the screen, I was instantly pissed. But then I was like, damn, he looks kind of hot. I'm sorry. But he did.
I've been saying.
He looks kind of hot. I was like, damn, you are evil hot. So,
yep.
Yeah, he looked really hot. Like, he didn't look that hot last season, but this season, I'm like, damn, what happened to you, Morden? And then at the end, I got pissed off all over again. But he looked real hot. He looked real hot in the beginning.
Can I ship Morden and Nicole now?
Yeah.
Seems like the right time for that.
He probably doesn't look like that now, but,
Only if
she
lets the shadows watch.
They'll be there regardless, either way, because they're always with them.
You're right. Andrew, first impressions.
Yeah, so I don't know what season 3, episode 1, Nicole or Jessi and Emily were watching, but I really liked it. I thought it was great that we finally got to see what I think is the best part of any political drama, which is starting to see these alliances more overtly becoming questionable, like specifically between Londo and Morden. I'm excited to see where the Rangers are starting to feel like a bigger part of the show now. So really interested in seeing where all that goes.
So Justin, we gave you a lot of shit about the Angels, and now Mr. Morden's at Earth Dome, so you have to be creaming your pants.
Nerdgasm.
Like, who the fuck is Morden not in bed now with these days? Jesus Christ! Like,
I would have said Nicole a minute ago, but
now, I mean, now Nicole's probably Googling Morden Love Pillow on Amazon or something like that. But
we can make that Redbuttable if you want.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh God, no.
You can also make him a toilet
body
seat.
pillow.
Oh God.
What it says, what do you want on it?
It's a real doll.
And then I'll be like, you know what I want.
Oh,
but
we have continued this conversation about 5 minutes extra too long. So,
but anyway, back to my first impressions. Yeah, just watching him walk in there towards the end, I was like, that really caught me off guard. But overall, being a season premiere and not too shabby, I had the same reaction as Emily when I pulled out my Babylon 5 DVDs and said, who the fuck is this space Jared Leto that's here on the cover?
wow.
But so far, not a bad character in my opinion. I like you can definitely tell they're getting more money. The CGI is a little bit better. The cameras seem to even be a little bit better. New set pieces. Everything's a little not as grainy as it was in season 2. And then is it just me or is the music darker and more martial?
You're going to see that Christopher Frank, who is the composer, and he's great, changes the theme to match the theme of the show. So you listen to the intro, you listen to the instrumental music or the incidental music, things change every single season.
It's definitely a lot more martial feel to the music so far this season. Overall, I really don't have anything negative to say about it.
And that will go to our first ones who have watched the whole show at least once or 500 times. Mike, first impressions.
Yeah, really like this episode. I definitely get where it is a bit overwhelming. I've rewatched the series probably less than the rest of you guys, and even I forgot just how much happens all in this first episode of the season with the introduction of Marcus and the introduction of the White Star and all of that. But yeah, overall it's good. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got fun space battles. It's got, I guess, no big space mystery necessarily, but a little bit of politicking going on. And, who doesn't love that new intro that's so ominous with Ivanova announcing that, Babylon 5 failed at its initial mission, and then they cut away to all of the remaining main cast looking like they were being introduced as the starting lineup in a NFL football game.
Shakar from Western Illinois University.
So yeah, overall, it's a very fun episode, and you get Marcus.
Yes. Blake, first impressions.
I also really enjoy this episode. I thought it's, I will say, I think it starts off a little slow and it takes a minute to grab your attention into it, but it is a really great episode. And you get a lot of advancement in the story. You get the White Star brought in, you get Marcus. The other thing I like, you really get to see Delenn start to do something in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first episode we really get to see Delenn whoop someone's ass.
Mm-hmm.
In that fight scene. So it's nice to see Delenn start to get a little bit more to do also. I will say the other part, that scene at the end with the senator, for all the conversation we've had about Babylon 5 versus Deep Space Nine, does anyone else here know who played the senator?
I do.
Other than Scott?
I was staring at her like I know her face, and my brain was like,
her name is Kitty Swink.
Yeah.
Her husband is Armin Shimmerman, who is Quark from Deep Space Nine.
I love Quark.
Oh, I met her then. Okay.
Yeah, it's Quark's wife is the senator at the end of this.
Didn't know that.
And Kevin, first impressions.
I really like this episode as well. It packs a lot in. It does start off a little bit on the slow side, but it picks up later for sure. It's great that they've moved out the station and unveiled the Defiant. Oops, I mean the White Star.
Okay. We'll have a conversation.
I'm only kidding.
Go ahead.
Kidding. But no, I mean the introduction of Marcus Cole is something that I've been eagerly awaiting. If anyone has seen my my Babylon 5 profile pic, you can guess why. So, but yeah, this is a great episode with I especially like seeing Tucker Smallwood. He done some other stuff that I've seen and is always good. So. But yeah, the piece at the end, knowing that Morden's working with Psycor, that's something to talk about for sure.
Yeah, and for me, you guys have hit on most of it already. I think this is the strongest season opener we've seen so far. Point of departure is important because it kind of resets everything after Chrysalis tosses some tables. But this is the episode that really reminds you that we are now in a serialized show. And I know I've said that a lot, but I mean, it starts with Sheridan saying, hey, Kosh, 10 days ago, you saved my ass. And then we just continue on. We talk about the Marcab homeworld again. We talk about how the shadows are still moving. We continue off Londo's story where we knew he was getting hesitant about working with Morden, and now he's telling Morden to buzz off and so forth and so on. So there's a lot happening here. And I'm with Kevin. I think Marcus is one of my favorite characters in the whole show, and I'm glad we finally got to see Jason Carter, and I'm going to enjoy what you guys all feel about him. Obviously, I'm not spoiling because he's in the main credits, so Marcus will be back. And I love the White Star. I fucking love the White Star. And yes, Kevin already made the joke. I will say, people argue, well, DS9 stole from Babylon 5 because Defiant and White Star, they both came in season 3. DS9 season 3 was a year earlier because they didn't take a break between The Gathering and The Emissary happened as season 1. Whereas in The Gathering happened and then they took a break for a year. So at this point in the 90s, the Defiant's been around for a year. So I always love when people are like, oh, the Defiant is a copy off the White Star. It was around for a year before the White Star. Okay. But I think the look that Sheridan gives when he sees the White Star for the first time and Marcus says, that's yours, is the look I give when the White Star shows up, because we get to move around now, guys. And that's the thing, too. It was the same with Deep Space Nine. We get to move around now. And actually, JMS said that in season 3, they had more money, as you guys have all mentioned, to build more sets. And some of those sets, as we've already seen, are not on Babylon 5. So buckle up, kiddos.
You mentioned the start of the serialization. You know, one of the criticisms you and I have had most on a certain other Deep Space franchise on the other side of the universe is there was never any stakes to it.
Yeah.
It's a reset button every single week.
Yes.
But right there in the opening of this one, the very first scenes, you've got fixing that front pylon on the station that got blown off at the season finale. They're fixing that tramway system where the bomb went off. So, you know, you start to see those pieces where things have consequences from one episode to the next. The reset button is gone at this point.
Absolutely. And we're going to continue to see that in a lot of dark and sad ways as we continue on this story. So
I love that other series, but it's extremely fair criticism. Absolutely.
You love Voyager?
I was talking about TNG, but whatever.
Oh, I think he was talking about
Voyager.
Oh, I thought you were talking about TNG. Okay.
Voyager.
Okay.
Voyager's the one that actually literally built more shuttles without saying they built more shuttles.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they called out in the first season, we only have 6 shuttles, and then they blew up 20 shuttles in the 7 years. It was great. Okay, so let's talk about this show and not Star Trek, so Jessi doesn't rip my fucking head off. Okay, so who wants to talk about what first? We got mainly, I think the 2 major plot points here are the Londo Shadows, Morden stuff, and then the rest of the crew and the White Star and Marcus and all that. So Nicole, where do you want to go first?
I guess we could start with the Londo and the Morden stuff.
Yeah.
When he asked Morden to meet him and he was like, oh, so you got what you wanted and you want us to disappear. It was very clear that Morden was not he was being sarcastic and stuff. But I forgot who it was that said they thought maybe Morden might have been working with Rifa already.
Yes. Yeah. That's why my hand is up.
Yeah.
We were right.
Yes.
And everybody else said no. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that with or without Londo, he would have still worked with Rifa.
Yeah. And he plainly says he worked with Lord Rifa to secure that planet. So I thought it was kind of fucked up, but I was like, I remember we said that in that episode that he was working with Rifa. So I was like, ooh, now I want to know what was said beyond the rim on that episode. But the fact that he basically was like, okay, fine. You know, this is what we have. This is what you have. You know, stay on your side. We'll stay on our side. And he's like, well, how do I know that, you know, you're going to hold your word? And he goes, you don't. And I was like, you just dance with the devil. Do you think this guy's going to fucking. Right. And then when he said he worked with Rifa. So basically, I feel like Morden almost dismissed Londo more than Londo was trying to dismiss Morden at this point, because he was like, all right, you won't give me what I want. I'll go to this fuck. And he did. So that was crazy. And I think that, you know, I don't know if Londo trying to wash his hands of Morden was him trying to, like, I don't know, make a penance or just kind of move forward. But clearly the Centauri and Morden are in bed now. And honestly, I almost wonder in that little trio at the end that we saw, if the Centauri are in on it too, but I'll save that for later.
Andrew.
Kind of deviate away from that a little bit. I just wanted to touch on our new season 3 intro. So I think that is probably the most kick-ass intro that we've gotten so far, just like with all the updated graphics and Ivanova's voice and like just the way she inflects, and like the part where she says like Babylon 5 was our last best hope for peace and we failed. Just, yeah, that's it. Oh,
Well,
and Jeff
Conway.
Conway.
Yeah,
Jeff Conway
is now main cast. Remember, we were talking about he basically earned his stripes, and I continue to harp on the Jeff Conway thing because I think he went through a lot of shit in his life, and his life honestly didn't end very well. But he worked his ass off to get a bit part and turn it into main cast. And I love the fact that you all kind of enjoyed him in season 2, and we all knew, and we were talking beyond the rim that he's going to be a much bigger character in season 3. And I think he earned his stripes, and it's just a pleasure to see him in the main cast because he worked his ass off to get there as an actor.
He deserves it. He deserves it.
Yeah, he went through a lot of shit to get there. Sorry, Andrew.
Oh no, that was it. Just those 2 points.
And Blake.
I want to flip back over to the Morden pieces, especially that very first conversation with Londo. And ask a question, one, for those of you who watched it. So I watched this actually twice. I watched it on 2 different devices. One is I did it on my laptop, and the other was on my surround sound system. And when Morden has that very first conversation with Londo, and Emily, you're shaking your head. It's an audio podcast, but I'm going to call that out. You're shaking your head because there's this noise after Londo says, I want to be done with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've talked about this, Morden being a meat puppet versus free will before. And I think we've already established some of that, but you really get this idea. And we've even seen in the episode where they, Sheridan scanning through the different frequencies and sees the shadows next to him. But you hear that whisper here. They want to have a word before this all gets separated out. So it's just kind of an interesting, and I didn't know how many of you might have picked that up based on what you watched on, because my laptop, it didn't show up so well. But on the surround sound system, it actually showed up pretty loud and clear on there. So I wanted to point that out for y'all.
I love that line that Morden says. It's like, oh, there's just this one thing, probably not even worth mentioning. It's like, oh, then it's definitely worth mentioning if you're going to put it like that.
Well, we all know how treaties work.
Yeah.
Justin, because it's an audio podcast, Justin held up his notebook and had like an entire page that was like Morden's sound. So Justin definitely caught it. But did you also notice in the next scene where they were divvying out the fucking galaxy? And it was literally the entire, we're not talking sectors here, kids. We're like, you take this little swath of the galaxy, we'll take the rest.
I noticed that was divided by a line of fire.
Yes.
It's a bit dramatic.
I was like, oh, okay. That's unique.
Okay, here's the deal. It's divided down the middle by a line of fire. And then they say, except for this spot over here.
Yeah.
If you're Centauri, wouldn't you immediately be like, you can't have that? I don't know what it is, but you can't have it.
And what's over there?
Yeah,
and
that's
Morton
the
even
diamond
called
planet.
Morton even called it out. It's like, we both know these trees are bullshit anyway. So when we want something, we're just going to take it. So what are you going to do? Emily, what do you got?
So for that first conversation with Morden and Londo going in, like, I was honestly trying to figure out, is he this inept that he doesn't realize he can't just be like, I'm done and we need to sever this? Or is he just desperate at this point to try to get away from what he's been doing? Because when they first had their agreement, Morden asked him, I might need a favor from you later, something along those lines. And I'm like, really, dude? Did you forget that bit of it? Because you're not walking away from this without this guy getting something he wants. And it was just interesting. I'm still kind of trying to figure out if he's really that far out of his element, because it's not in his usual nature to be so ruthless and conniving and play that kind of a long game, because he had never really had that much responsibility before, or if he's just confused on what the hell to do and doesn't really want to be involved.
See, I see it the exact opposite way on both of those. I see it as, this is how Londo does business. This is how the Centauri do business. This is not new. He's like, hey, I used you. I got what I needed. It's time for you to go away. Because he was even smiling when he was talking to Morden. Morden's like, are you sure? He's like, yeah, I'm done. We're good. we have a manifest destiny. It doesn't matter. We don't need you anymore. We're good. And then Morden's like with his shadow friend saying, hey, we just have one little thing we have to go over. Fine. Then we're done. So I think you're looking at Londo, and this is legitimate. You're looking at it this way. This is your perspective. You're seeing Londo from a piece of weakness. I'm seeing Londo coming out as a piece of strength. He's saying, I'm done with you. We don't need you anymore.
And I'm trying to figure out what makes him think he can make that statement when
I didn't say he was smart.
When he needed their help and they could like do what they did. They're just like, oh, we're gonna go in and just like boom.
But I'm sorry, I stepped on you there. Did you all notice that he doesn't even know what the ships look like?
Yeah.
He's never seen what the shadows do. All he knows is that when they go in there, it's no longer a problem. So he's coming at a point of ignorance too. He has no idea. These guys may just be more raiders for all he knows. He doesn't know.
Which is really dangerous if you don't know what you're dealing with and then try to sever a relationship. So that also kind of seems incompetent.
I never said he was smart. I just said he was coming in a position of strength. That's all I said.
It comes off as cocky and or naive.
Mm-hmm.
Both.
Justin, what do you got?
Well, I mean, I definitely agree that Londo is definitely coming in from a place of ignorance because he has to know deep down Morton and the shadows are not going anywhere, regardless of what Londo says. Because even in their parting words at the bar, after he goes, oh, by the way, we have to kind of do a little bit of bookkeeping before we go. And then Londo says, and then we'll be done. And then you'll go away for as long as you want us to. Or something like that, which means that's Morton's way of saying, yeah, you may not want us now, but you'll come crawling back to us eventually. And I think that's kind of what all of that was setting up towards, especially now that Londo knows that Rifa's involved with Morton. He's not going to let that slide. And he's going to end up coming right back to Morton, not even just because he wants to have anything to do with Morton, but he has to protect himself from Rifa. So
thanks, Justin. Now I have Hamilton in my head. You'll be back.
That's what you'll see. You belong to me.
Nicole, would you like to serenade us as well?
No, I will not do that to you. But I will say one thing that I thought in this. I know this happened at the end and isn't part of this scene and storyline, but I think it's related. How Londo kind of was arrogant. I think Mike said it, arrogant and naive a little bit about how he was addressing Morton, thinking like, oh, he's gonna just go away, when Morton clearly made it clear that like, no, I'm not gonna go away, I'm gonna work with Rifa. But at the very end, I noticed Morton said something about how they were talking about the report and how the Narns were like, oh, they were saying stuff but they don't really know. And he goes, and we handled the Narns, didn't we? So I feel like Morton has no hesitation or qualms about just wiping anybody out who gets in their way. And I feel like I thought that was a good correlation because the way he was addressing Londo was like, are you sure? Not even a little bit. And then he's like, all right, well, we're just going to go work with Rifa. And then at the end, when he said that, obviously it wasn't part of that storyline, but I still think it's related because, it just shows the character of who Morton and the Shadow People are. But also it just kind of like almost made that scene even a little bit more like, oh, you fucked up because he's not going to listen to you. And like the whole, treaties are what they are. Basically, the bullshit. You know what I mean? I just feel like that was kind of hitting the nail in the coffin on all of those things that happened before in the episode.
Emily.
Well, since Nicole brought up that scene when they're talking about the report, I knew he had to be working with someone on Earth. I saw that scene. I was like, yes, I knew it. Because I know he's not just working with the Centauri. It would have made sense. He's got to be manipulating the situation from multiple angles. So I knew he had to be working with someone on Earth. And that actually explains the absurd treaty between Earth and Centauri.
The one thing I wanted to bring up with the Londo Morton stuff that you guys haven't brought up yet, and Blake, you kind of alluded to this with all of the serialization of the show as we move forward. We get Londo's dreams again. And that's a dream we have seen flat out. He didn't recognize what those ships were. Now he does. So even his dream is starting to make more sense to him as it goes through as well, too. So that's interesting. I love how we're continuing to build off that as we move forward in this show, too. Anything else on the Londo Morton aspect before we dive into what's happening with the Ranger planet and all that good stuff?
I do believe we have it surrounded, Mr. Morton.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about Mr. Marcus. Who wants to talk about our good friend Marcus Cole?
Robin Hood.
Anyone?
I'm sorry, every time I saw
Aragorn.
him and heard him speak, I kept thinking Robin Hood.
Okay, so Emily doesn't like Marcus. Okay.
I never said I didn't like him. I just said I keep picturing him as a Robin Hood.
Okay,
I really liked him in 30 Seconds to Mars.
God. Does anyone else have any opinions on Mr. Marcus so far?
Marcus reminds me of Aragorn from Lord of the Rings a little bit.
Okay, so we've got everyone comparing Marcus to other people. Does anyone want to talk about Marcus himself? Justin?
So am I getting this right to where like the Rangers are kind of like the Jedi at Babylon 5, or is it just Marcus? Because it seems like he's kind of got that kind of Jedi feel to him, and then like he whips out his like magical stick that he beats the shit out of people with. I don't know if that's Ranger standard issue or if that's just something that's unique to him, but I think he's an interesting...
He said it was a gift.
Yeah, he actually said he got it from a friend. So and Dylan knows what it is, and she's seen it before, but it's not like he got it as, a uniform. He was
part of your kit.
And unlike a Jedi's lightsaber, the Minbari fighting staff at least makes some sense.
It makes zero sense, but okay, sure.
Would have been cooler as a lightsaber, but anyway. I don't know. I mean, I've only seen him for one episode, so I really don't know what to think of him at this point. He has an interesting backstory, almost like a tragic backstory about how he came to show up in the Rangers and stuff like that. Kind of feels like he's kind of avenging his dead brother or keeping his promise to his dead brother. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to kind of hold my judgment on him as a character until I see more of him. But so far, he's not terrible.
He stopped believing in everything a long time ago, Justin.
Yeah, he's a nihilist.
Mm-hmm.
You can't trust nihilists.
Emily.
So aside from thinking of Robin Hood every time I see him, I do actually think he has the potential to be a really interesting character as we go forward in the season. Yes, I see you dancing with your little toy.
He does look like Robin Hood, doesn't he? He does.
No, sir. We didn't see you playing with your dolls again.
So I'm really hopeful that the writing for him is good and he has solid character development, because I feel like there's a lot of potential for him there. So I'm interested to see how he progresses through the season, assuming he makes it out alive. I don't know. I hope so.
Andrew.
How dare you insult the writing for Marcus when he has such lines as, like, I don't remember what he says exactly, but...
when he has such lines as I don't remember.
Wow, Andrew.
The gist of it was...
I don't talk much if I don't have anything to say. That was a fucking gem of a line.
No, I'm talking about like when they're in the down below and they encounter the one guy and he says like how dare you insult me, and he says like oh, with a face like that I thought you'd be used to it by now.
Yeah, with a face like that.
Let's do it this way real quick. So I'm gonna go to all the newbies based on the first time you saw Kefir and the first time you saw Marcus, because these are both coming in one season at a time. Who were you more interested in? Not who did you think would be a better character or anything else. Who were you more interested in when you first saw him? Kefir or Marcus? Jessi. Kefir, if you like.
The fact that I thought his name was Kefler tells you right there that I was not extremely interested in his character. I'm excited to see where Marcus goes. I don't know. I'd probably pick Marcus if I had to pick one.
Emily.
Marcus.
Andrew.
We're talking first impressions. It's about equal.
Okay. You like jet jockeys or whatever you want to call them?
You're damn right I do.
Justin.
Yeah, I guess I'm on the Cole train.
And Nicole, Kefir or Marcus?
Marcus.
You think he's hotter, don't you?
Well, yeah, but that's besides the point. I like his accent. But I think because he's a ranger, I'm a little bit more interested in what his storyline will be.
So what else we want to talk about, guys? We still got what's going on with the investigation into the shadows, and we've got what happens with the White Star. Emily.
Okay, so I want to talk about the White Star and what was with the edge around their stations. It's creepy. I was like, does it look more like a weird spinal column with residual tissue? Does it look like gums with teeth worn down? It freaked me out. I do not like it.
It almost looks
cool.
It almost looks biological, doesn't it?
Yeah, which, not surprising because they're working with the Vorlon, and it was, a partnership ship. I see you waving, Andrew.
Andrew's getting really excited, guys. What's he got?
I had something in my notes about that because she mentioned that it was built like with a combination of theirs and Borlon technology. So I was wondering, like, is the ship sentient, and that's why it looks so weird.
You'll have to wait and see beyond the rim.
Damn it.
Tentacles.
Buttholes.
I think it's kind of cool too that they're playing ahead. Like it's built to not look like anything. So if it gets captured or destroyed, it won't lead to anybody else because we don't want people knowing where this came from. I like that. Justin.
We got deviated to the White Star, but I wanted to point out my favorite Ivanova moments probably so far was in this episode of when Sheridan is like very apologetic and is like, I'm sorry I haven't told you this yet. And then she just rattles off everything that's going on. And the dumbfounded look on their faces is like, how did you even know? And she said something very true. If there's ever a moment where I don't know what's going on in this station, then worry. So
I always love when they give Ivanova I love it when they show Ivanova is good at her job. You know, it's just little stuff like she's legitimately good at her job. I fucking love that. Blake.
Well, Justin just beat me to it. I was going to comment on that whole scene with Ivanova where, Sheridan very apologetically is going to explain to her, didn't want to tell you this way. Sorry about it. Oh, shit, you know everything. But the background acting there, just the look on Garibaldi's face as she's going through this, too, where you've got Garibaldi and Lanier just sharing this look of, oh, fuck.
Andrew, you got your hand up again?
Yeah, this was for something else.
Go for it.
I was just going to bring up, because they said like it's a new med lab. So did I miss something, or did something happen off screen? Like why is there a new med lab?
Because we got an increase in our budget.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
I mean, I guess in headcan you can argue we didn't see Franklin for 2 or 3 episodes. Maybe he was installing it, what we didn't see him. But they got more money. They did the same thing in season 2. We got the Zocalo in season 2, and we got the Fighter Bay, the Cobra Bay. And so now we've got the new med lab. We have a couple extra B5 stations. We got the White Star set, and then there's another set you got a peek of, and I don't want to say what it is because that would be a spoiler, but you got a peek of it this episode. Nicole.
Going back to the White Pearl or White Star, I don't know why I called it White Pearl. White Star. Sorry.
All the fans are clutching their pearls right now, but it's a White Star.
Or white pearls.
Yeah. So that thing kind of like the teeth inside kind of freaked me out a little bit. Like it was like all around the controls were like, they look like teeth. So it was kind of weird to me. But what I thought was interesting about that is that Sheridan didn't even know he had a whole ass ship. And then all of a sudden here's a whole ship for him. Right. And then they get on it, and how did they figure out how to work it if it's technology that's beyond their realm? Like Ivanova was just looking at the controls and like, all right, here we go. And I was like, it just kind of like, I don't know. It was kind of crazy how like they just jumped in and started going. And also about how he knew about like the whole jump point thing. And like, that was just really interesting. That whole, like, let him follow us. And then they jump pointed out of the jump gate and all that. And I just thought that whole sequence was like, kind of like fun and exciting. The whole like chase and how they missed when they shot it, the shadows missed when they shot at them and stuff. He was very quick to figure a lot of things out. And I don't know if that's just a trope of Sheridan, because like, I feel like he finds the puzzle pieces very fast. But yeah, I thought that was kind of that whole scene was just kind of fun. And Lanier's reaction, I think I need to rework that. Like that just cracked. It was like funny, but exciting.
A couple things, and I know, Nicole, you're new to sci-fi, but for those who watch Star Trek, and we already joked about the Defiant, and I will say that seasons 1, season 2 of Babylon 5 are stronger than Deep Space Nine, hands down. But Deep Space Nine turned a corner as a show when they got a ship, and they were able to go places. Babylon 5 now has a ship, and they get to go places, and they get to have these exciting moments. So I think you're going to enjoy that piece. The other part is, you mentioned how they learn how to use the ship. They didn't. Remember that they had the religious cast there running the ship.
Right. But Ivanova was still manning some of the controls and like
she was looking at the sensors, right?
Oh.
Well, we're going to talk about that Beyond the Rim, Scott, because I wanted to bring that up in the Beyond the Rim part with Ivanova and the controls. So we'll talk about that later, Nicole.
Understood. Nicole, you can hear about it in 2 years. Yeah. Emily.
Awesome.
I'm just looking more for a bit of clarification about the ship, because Dylan was explaining that, you know, it was a collaboration project with the Minbari and the Vorlon, but because of Sheridan, the crew for the ship was from the religious caste. So I was trying to figure out, the warrior caste has a majority on the Grey Council.
They have 4 seats.
So how do they factor into this? And
Nicole has her hand up. She has an answer for you beyond the rim. Nicole, go for it.
They said the Grey Council didn't know about the ship.
Some on the Grey Council didn't know.
Oh, okay.
We don't know.
Again, you clearly have never worked for government.
I was trying to figure. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out, like, if I missed something there, or if they didn't clarify that. So
no, they did clarify, and I think I'm glad you brought it up, actually, because that's another point. Again, I'm killing a dead horse here, but this show feeds you stuff and continues on with this stuff. It doesn't just go away. There is dissent in the Grey Council. Delenn got thrown off the Grey Council. The warrior class took over the Grey Council. So the Grey Council is not the good guys right now. And so they don't want the Grey Council, at least some of them, knowing about the White Star, because if the warrior cast knew about it, the warrior cast has already said in previous episodes, they want to start some shit with the Earthlings and all that. So we don't want them to know about the White Star. So it's 100% religious cast, because they're not going to tell the warrior cast. So it's infighting inside of the Minbari too.
Yeah, and I was wondering about how those divisions work within Minbari society. And then, I mean, obviously they're working with Vorlons, or at least some of them. So then it's, you know, that gets into questions about, are there divisions within the Vorlon society as well? So I'll leave that alone for now.
That sounds like a question. Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was going to bring up, it was kind of a trope when they first introduced Sheridan, that he was kind of the guy who just automatically knew everything and had the answer to everything. It actually made sense in this episode, and they kind of remind you again that before coming to Babylon 5, Sheridan was a ship captain. He was a warship captain, and so he jumped right into the seat and felt at home with, you know, tactics and how ships battle and how they, you know, outmaneuver the shadows, how he kind of intuitively guessed what the shadow ship was up to, trying to corral them, you know, to figure out who they were and so on and so forth. So it was another nice callback to things that previous canon that had been established.
Kevin.
One of the things I wanted to mention about the behind the scenes was the fighting scene with Lanier and Marcus and Delenn. It's a shame because that scene was supposed to be longer, and it got cut short because of lack of, you know, time to be able to actually film it. But it's you know, something that Mira Furlan, you know, hadn't gotten to do up until this point in the show. And it wasn't something that she was super comfortable with, but she enjoyed doing it. But yeah, the fighting pike is you know, Marcus's weapon, and it starts off, you know, really small and gets really big, and it oh well, we probably shouldn't go down that road. Never mind.
It's only been several months since you've spoiled anything, Kevin. We're fine. Andrew.
Going back to the this episode having some of the best Ivanova moments, I wanted to point out her line where they're talking about the possibility of the jump gate inside of a jump gate. She says, yeah, they called it the bonehead maneuver, and like looks over at Lanier and, oh, no offense. And he goes, oh, none taken.
Which you could see in Lanier's face. There was some offense taken.
Yeah. But also in that scene, I wanted to point out Delenn's really does have like unwavering faith in Sheridan, because Sheridan looks at her and says like, are you sure this is gonna work? And she says no, but like, I trust you know what you're doing, and so then yes, I do think it's gonna work, or like something along those lines. So I thought that was a really good moment between the two of them.
The one thing I wanted to add real quick is, and you guys have kind of already alluded to it a little bit, is back to the whole point of Sheridan being a good captain. We've been told a couple times now, once in this episode, actually maybe even twice in this episode, he's the one guy who scored a hit during the Minbari War. So in the season finale, Ivanova gave Sheridan a piece of the ship that he blowed up. And then in this one, he looked at Delenn and basically said, look, I've been down this road before. So we continue to get hints that Sheridan's the one guy who could pull this kind of stuff out of his ass. Emily.
Just trying to clarify something else if you can. So Dylan made it sound like at least a certain portion of the population of Minbari know about the Rangers. They know of their existence and they're not comfortable with them. Is that like everybody knows, or higher ranking, higher caste levels would know? Who it wasn't really clear, so I didn't know if I missed that or if it's never made clear.
It certainly seems like more people know about it than we thought, right? When we first found out about it, it was like super secret on B5 and only Garibaldi knew and only Dylan knew. But now we've got Drazi, who are staging things at different places. We've got, as you mentioned with Dylan, so it seems like more know about it. So you're noticing stuff, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay, because it sounds like no one on Earth knows.
But there's Earthlings seeking out to be a Ranger. I mean, not Marcus, but his brother did. So some people on Earth know about it.
Somehow, yeah.
I love Kosh's sense of humor at the beginning of the episode.
Oh, he was trolling Sheridan.
Sheridan
got Koshed.
It's like, how do I know you're the same Vorlon? I've been here the whole time. You said that about me.
Question.
Yes.
What does that mean?
I'm glad you guys brought up Kosh. I know I've talked about this before in previous episodes, but I want to hit on it again because I think you're seeing this becoming more important. About 4 or 5 episodes ago, Kosh-wise, when Kosh is in the story, JMS himself started doing the voice directing. So he is telling the voice actor where to make inflections, where to, do all of this script reading. So everything Kosh says is said for a reason. And so I think if you watch back, like season 1, where Kosh is very much deadpan and very monotone, if you listen to Kosh now, especially when he's talking about how he's weak after everyone saw him. And by the way, you guys talked about this in the last episode. Did everyone know it was Kosh? No, they didn't know it was Kosh because Kosh was off to the side and he disappeared. But it also, when he's talking about how he's weak now, his inflection is just different. So it's very important because you don't get face mannerisms with Kosh, but the voice actor is doing a lot of work to impart what he's feeling and what he's doing. And I'm enjoying watching Kosh do this as we go along.
It's like, because I really feel like Kosh is educating Sheridan every time that they talk just a little bit, because even when like Sheridan says, well, you've said that same thing about me, and he just says yes and just starts to walk off like a boss. Sheridan basically says, this is really annoying, right? And Kosh just goes, good. And that's like, that's my homeboy. I love Kosh.
Kosh is fun. Let's go ahead and dive into questions and predictions. And for those who are just joining us, the newbies have not watched past Matters of Honor, and so we are going to ask them if they have any lingering questions and if they have any predictions of what might come next. So let's go over to Justin first. Questions and predictions.
Yeah. Main question in my mind, what the hell is this program that Psy-Corps wants to use the shadows to speed up? That's when they're sitting there on the couch and they're talking about, well, how they can brush this whole, footage. Because one, I learned that the government doesn't have that tight of control on the media as we thought that they did, because they didn't even know that the footage was going on the news until they saw it and had to yank it off. So then, so now in trying to explain this to the people, Psy-Corps thinks that they can use this to try to speed up the program. Well, what is that program? I have a prediction for that. The Shadows are preparing Earth with EarthGov cooperation for invasion and occupation by the Shadows. I think there's people in EarthGov actively working to help bring the Shadow occupation to Earth. Now, what this program entails, I'm dying to know. My tinfoil hat's over here just like twitching and rattling on its own. So, other question, how many other worlds are the Shadows doing this on? Is Morton talking to everybody? That's what I'm wondering. Is he not only, because of course he's in bed with the Centauri, we found out he's in bed with Earth. Who else is he working with? Are there any non-aligned worlds that Morton's also talking to and getting assistance from? And then we note that the White Star is a prototype. Will there be more of them? Will B5 have its own secret fleet eventually? And then my last question, maybe you can even answer this without having to go beyond the rim. The name of the planet, the Zagros 7, that sounds familiar to me for some reason. Is there anywhere we've heard of that planet be mentioned before for any reason? Because I had to go through my notes because I thought it was the planet from Gropos that they were attacking, but it wasn't. So I don't remember. Like I said, it just sounded really familiar to me and I couldn't place it. And then just one kind of just side note, if you want to call it prediction, is if EarthGov is working with the Shadows, Babylon 5 is going to have a hard time getting resources to fight them off. That's all I've got.
To answer your question on Zagros 7, this is the first time you've heard about it. I think maybe you may be like having a little deja vu because Marcus mentions it first. It's the same planet that he was escaping from.
I got that part. Maybe I'm just confusing it. Maybe I'm just confusing it with other planets I've heard throughout the different episodes.
Yeah, I just went to the B5 wiki, and this is the first time that Zagros 7 is mentioned in the show.
I think
I'm probably confusing it with a different one then.
It sounds a lot like Zathras.
Yeah, it has a passing similarity to Zathras. That was my only thought too, Mike.
Maybe. Okay.
Andrew, questions, predictions.
All right. So first prediction. I think Morden is going to go back on his word to Londo about kind of staying to their halves. Because, we haven't really talked about Nazis in this discussion. So Hitler promised not to invade Poland, and look what happened. First question is Earth in the shadow half? Like when you're showing the diagram, my question is Earth in the shadow half? And kind of a follow-up prediction to that, kind of similar to what Justin was saying, Morden is plotting for the Shadows to conquer Earth, creating a bigger incentive for Sheridan and his new war council to stop them. To your is Earth on that side or not? It doesn't show on the map, but we mentioned dividing the galaxy in half. If you look at that map again, they're not dividing the galaxy in half. Centauri is basically getting just a little bit of the arms on one side.
It's like a
and the Shadows are getting everything else. So just
I didn't mean like a literal half. Like I guess more just like staying to their sections.
So you can, I would assume, and again, it's not on the map, but you can assume that most of the galaxy is on the Shadows portion.
Okay. So then another question. What does Kosh mean whenever he keeps saying that he and Sheridan have always been here? And Justin, I'm going to need to borrow your tinfoil hat for a moment because I think that Sheridan is secretly a Vorlon meat puppet or perhaps possessed by a Vorlon, but he doesn't realize it.
We said it last time, touched by a Vorlon.
However many times Blake made that joke and it went over your guys' heads has been cute every single time.
And that's all I got.
Okay, great. Thank you. Emily, questions, predictions?
Yeah. So first prediction is at some point Ivanova will be commanding B5 because Sheridan's going to have to leave to go fight the Shadows. The Shadows' plan for now is to use Centauri homeworld as their base like they did the Narn homeworld in the previous war that Jakar mentioned. The other prediction, so the report said that no one knows the Shadows are back. I think the Shadows are going to figure out they do know they're back because they have this fancy new ship. Because even though that Shadow ship got destroyed, I'm guessing they were still able to send a message back to someone else to relay the information that, hey, there's this new ship showing up trying to protect the Rangers, which would indicate they know what's going on. So as far as questions, what is the lifespan of the Shadows in Vorlon? I mean, does one entity live 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 1 billion years? What's their lifespan? And how do they reproduce? I mean, if you're going to have a war, someone's going to die, and having your population dwindle doesn't make sense. So I would assume reproduction has to happen in some form.
Are you asking about angry demon sex right now, or?
I might be.
Happy angel sex? Is that what you meant to say that, right?
That sounds less interesting.
Yeah, that's probably the case.
So yeah, I'm kind of with Sheridan on, is that always Kosh in the Vorlon suit, or is it somebody else occasionally coming back? Like, do they switch it around? Because they'll never know. Seems like a good way to play a prank and just give somebody time away from being on B5. That's it.
Jessi, questions, predictions?
My only question was, why wasn't Kosh at the table with everybody else when they were talking about forming their new little group. And I have no predictions. And after today's discussion, I feel like I need to go back and rewatch the episode again.
I will say, and for those listening, our next episode, and we're no longer in that weird place where different streaming services play different episodes because they're fairly much serialized at this point. But our next episode is Convictions. And Jessi, I have a feeling you're going to like Convictions a lot more than you like Matters of Honor. And I'll just leave it at that.
I didn't hate, let's be clear, I didn't not like Matters of Honor. Yeah. I was just very confused most of the time.
I think you're going to have more to chew on in Convictions.
Got it.
I'm actually, I'm a little jealous you guys get to talk about that episode without me because it's a good episode. And Nicole, questions, predictions.
All right. So my question is, did the shadow ship get blown up in that jump gate when they came out? Because it wasn't clear. It didn't really show if it got blown up or what. And if it did get blown up, is it going to tip off the shadows that they're known about? And then, so we saw the Earth, Psy-Corps, and Mr. Morden working together at the end. Is the Centauri involved in that too? Because I kind of feel like this alliance of the Centauri, Earth, and then, with the treaty they just did, and then the shadows with Rifa working with them, and, Psy-Corps is just twisted and evil. So I feel like, is the Centauri working with them too? Is it like a coup that they're all together? And then prediction wise, shit's about to pop off. Like, that's my biggest prediction. Now that Sheridan has the ship and they're having the war council and they're having their meetings every 2 weeks, I have a feeling that things are going to escalate, and the shadow people don't think they're onto them, but clearly they are, and they're preparing. So I think that that's just going to keep escalating. Obviously, it's the season. And then I guess I just did think of one other question. When Bester said, if we make people think there is a problem, it'll speed up the plan. What's the plan? That's my other question.
You mean Morden?
Or Morden, yeah. So when Morden and Bester were talking about how...
That wasn't Bester. That was just another Psy-Cop.
Oh, I thought it was Bester. They all look the same. They all look like dickheads I want to punch. So... But I didn't know it was a Psy-Cop. I just thought it was Bester.
Gotcha.
So anyway, those are my questions and predictions.
That will end it for our discussion with the newbies for the first episode of Season 3. Again, next week we'll be back here to talk Convictions, Episode 2, Season 3. Until then, be sure to check out all our social media accounts. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, click that notify button, all of that good stuff. And be sure also to let other people know about this show as we continue to grow, and continue to give your reviews as well, too, because that really does help. And then for those who have watched the whole show or don't care about spoilers, stick around after the credits and we will answer these questions and predictions. So until next week, when we talk Convictions, I have been Scott, and with me has been...
Jessi.
Emily.
Mike.
Blake.
Kevin.
Andrew.
Nicole.
And Justin.
Thank you for listening to Grey 17, a Babylon 5 podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast at anchor.fm/Grey17podcast or youtube.com @Grey17podcast. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, or Patreon. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Grey 17 is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Warner Brothers or any other owners of the Babylon 5 copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purpose of review, and no infringement is intended. The opening and closing themes are available from Falling Matter on YouTube.
And what's out there?
The rim,
And beyond that?
the truth.
Welcome back to Beyond the Rim again. Spoiler warning, if you have not watched past Matters of Honor or you just forgot what the show was all about, this is not the part of the show for you. If you are okay with spoilers, we're going to dive right in with the questions and predictions from our newbies. And guys, the first questions have to deal with the Earth program and Psy-Corps. So what is the Earth program that they want to speed up?
Do we know at this point?
I don't have a guess.
I mean, the only thing that I could think of is that, eventually we see destroyers with shadow tech grafted onto them.
I think the program they're talking about is we had this bit early on about Psychor endorsing a candidate for vice president. I mean, that was very early in the show where that was kind of a controversy. And I think what their program is what they're doing to manipulate power consolidated within Clark, who is therefore basically a puppet of Psychor. At this point, maybe willingly, maybe unwillingly, but somewhere in there, he's a puppet of, or not unwillingly, unwittingly is the word I was going for there.
Yeah, he thinks they're the puppet of him.
Yeah, he thinks they're the puppet of him. And, it's that program, because as they said, that unknown shadow ship can help them do one thing, which is amp up fear. And what have we seen politicians throughout history do when they have something they can make people afraid of?
Yep. That's exactly what I think it is too. Clark is going to use the fear of this new race to get consolidated power, to start shutting down any kind of resistance in the colonies, especially Mars and other colonies. And we'll hear about that too. Mars will fall. I think Proxima will fall, and a few others will fall as well too. And that's what leads to the Earth Civil War at the halfway point of this season is that. So I think that is what Psychor is interested in. And of course, the Shadows are interested in because they like to stir the pot. They want everyone to be weak. Along with those lines, are the Centauri involved in the Earth Shadow Alliance? And the answer is no. The Centauri are not. The Centauri are, the Shadows are just involving themselves all over the place, but there's no interconnection there. The Centauri are going to have issues because they're going to expand too fast and they're going to have internal strife. The Earth is going to have internal strife, and that's what the Shadows want.
Well, and that's it, because what they're doing is they're stirring up all these little conflicts. Mm-hmm. They're turning Earth into itself. They're driving this thing with the Centauri and all of their neighbors.
Yep. So along those same lines, how many worlds is Morden working with and causing this problem? A lot. We know that he was checking out different races all the way back in season 1. We know he has left the Minbari alone. We know he's not messing with the Vorlons, but anyone else is fair game.
Yeah, I mean, as far as big races, I think this is it. But as far as the lesser races, the League or non-aligned, probably several of them, if not many.
Mm-hmm. And part of it too is if you take out the big heads, the Centauri, the Narn, the Earth, then the other ones are just going to have infighting anyway. So you don't have to get granular if you don't want to, but stir enough pots around the galaxy and everything's going to fall apart. Is Earth on the shadow half of the galaxy in the treaty? It doesn't matter. The Shadows don't care.
Yeah, that little line of fire is not really going to matter if they get their way.
It doesn't, but it is an interesting question because it's interesting just to know whether or not at that point Londo is looking at the map and being like, yeah, screw the humans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have a manifest destiny and they're gonna do what they want. And I'm sure back in I'm sure back in Londo's head, because again, as everyone pointed out, Londo's still ignorant of what the shadow power really truly is. I bet he's thinking the same thing Morden's thinking. I'll turn around and screw these guys later. We'll consolidate our power behind this wall, and then when we're ready, we'll expand out of this wall.
Yeah, very possibly.
I would also think that Earth is probably on the shadow side of the wall. And the only reason I'm thinking that is because what we're going to find out later is the Shadows are using Psychor to get telepaths to put into shadow vessels. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking they're going to want to keep their hands on that.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
It really is crazy that Londo thought he was just going to be able to wipe his hands of them as soon as he didn't need them anymore, thought that he didn't need them anymore. That's just insane.
Yeah.
That is just not how power dynamics work.
I was saying, you can say that that's like a cultural thing of just how Centauri are, but there's no way that that's true because throughout their history, there has to have been times when, a dirty bargain has been struck and then somebody backstabs someone else or, that's just not the way things would work.
Mm-hmm. His hands got dirtier than he was comfortable with. That does not mean that he's a good guy or anything else. It just means that he probably didn't want the stink of them on his hands anymore, and that's just not the way the world works.
To be honest, I mean, Hitler thought he could use Stalin for a while and then say, fuck you. To quote JMS, there's a reason Stalingrad still strikes fear to the hearts of Germans.
True.
That didn't work out so well.
I mean, I also find it interesting that Morden is even having this discussion with Londo, especially when we know at this point that he has also been talking to Rifa. but the fact that he's negotiating the fate of the galaxy with someone who isn't the leader of the Centauri by any stretch. I mean, he's the one that they've done the dealings with, but
Morden looked very amused by the entire conversation. He looked like the cat that ate the canary for sure.
The way I look at it too is Morden's talking to Rifa. Morden's talking to Londo. Who's to say Morden's not talking to 5 other powerful houses, and he knows one of them's going to step up and be emperor. He doesn't really care who, just as long as when it all happens, they can use the Centauri Republic as a staging area and do what they want to do with it.
I mean, I absolutely agree. I just think it's interesting, again, that, granted, he's been having all the dealings with Londo, but like to go into a room with Londo and divide the galaxy in half, and that Londo thinks that he is the one making that decision on behalf of the Centauri.
Yeah.
It's curious.
So let's talk a little bit about the White Star. And the first question the newbies had was, who built the White Star? Who's paying for it? Because Emily needs to have a budget every time. So,
well, that would be the Minbari.
And the Vorlons.
They believe in money,
but not every facet of the Minbari. They made it pretty clear that it was really just the religious caste that was involved in this, and that well, you even said during the main show that it would be catastrophic if the warrior caste were to become aware of it.
Yeah, and what I didn't mention as part of the other question is there going to be a secret fleet for B5? It's not just one White Star. It's a fleet of White Stars. This is the bigger White Star, but there are other ones. So if the warrior caste found out there was an entire fleet, and these ships are pretty powerful, we haven't even seen their power yet, then yeah, there would be a problem. And Blake, I know you wanted to talk a little bit more about the White Stars as well, too.
Yeah, that is one thing I will say. And it got brought up a little bit, is Ivanova does sort of just jump on and run a console on this with very little background and training. We sort of see a little bit later where it's more of they have to issue orders through a translator. Ivanova's trying to learn Minbari. This will be stuff that comes up in later episodes in season 3 and 4. But it was a little bit, I think, of a jump here that, they walk on and she's sitting there running a stage, because she was firing weapons and doing stuff on that one station with what seemed to be just a brief tutorial for Marcus. So that is the one part I'll comment. I think there was a little bit of a disconnect, and they kind of gloss over it in later episodes with Earth staff on the White Star.
Mm-hmm.
I will note, because I kind of cringed at first when they entered the White Star set for the first time, because it's not the prettiest in my mind, or the most impressive looking, but like it did the sci-fi trope of like all of the controls are weird crystals, because that somehow makes sense to every alien race in the universe. But that actually turned out not to be true, because as they continued on and you saw a couple of different close-ups of characters, like when Marcus and Ivanova are having their side chat, the controls at the back are starkly different than the rest. They don't have the little crystal consoles. They actually have what look more like traditional touchscreens. And so I wonder if some of the White Star controls might actually be meant for human, i.e. Ranger hands.
There's actually some behind the scenes with this. They built that set on what they call the guest set. So it's the one that's like for only for a week. And they had to build that set so that it could be taken down and then put back up again. So that set really wasn't what JMS really envisioned particularly well. And it took them almost half the season, I think they said, to really, have a couple directors come in and really, line up the shots the way that they wanted it to, and for the set designers to make it look, better to what they were going for. But JMS said even, towards the end of the series, it still really didn't fit his vision as well as he wished that it had. I didn't want to say that during the main show, and I guess I can't think of a good reason why at this point, but it's probably something that we can tell them later, but I wouldn't necessarily want to do it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And the last thing on the White Star, did that shadow ship blow up? Because we didn't see it blow up.
I think it blew up.
I think it's gone, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's assumed. And it's there for a reason, is it shows even if the White Star doesn't have the firepower yet to take out a shadow ship, it's maneuverable enough and just fast enough to where you can you can hold your own against a shadow ship, which is something we haven't seen before yet.
Well, you know what's interesting actually is we did see another ship damage a shadow vessel.
That's true.
I believe it was a Narn battle cruiser.
Yeah, it was a Narn heavy cruiser. Yeah.
So they're far from invulnerable, but they're
and JMS actually pointed that out.
The surprise is the thing that gets.
Yeah, JMS pointed that out during that episode that the shadows are not omnipotent. The one thing the newbies did not either catch or didn't talk about is we got a little bit more of an idea of who's older, because Delenn does say that the shadows are the most ancient race that we know about. So the shadows have been around longer than anybody else, assuming as longer than the Vorlons as well.
Do we? Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know how much faith to put in that, because she's obviously keeping some secrets about the Vorlons.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I can't believe the newbies didn't latch onto or notice or mention is the kind of spoiler in the credit sequence with one Earth ship going after another and destroying it. I can't believe they didn't notice that.
Yeah, and they may have thought it was a training type thing, because we've seen them do some training flights before. I just wonder if they might have thought it was training.
But we're not talking like Earth cruisers. We're talking about 2 Star Furies.
True. Yeah. But it really seemed like the one blew up, so I'm just surprised. But I know what happens with the show, so I know I know what's important. But I was surprised.
I had the same thought because I watched that intro and I found myself thinking like, oh shit, maybe we should have told them not to watch the intro yet, because
that's a spoiler that I really wish wasn't in there. But we've had this discussion before about the credit sequences having a little bit more in it than we would really prefer for the first few episodes of a season. But
that one's halfway through a season before you get to that piece.
Oh, I know. I still can't believe that.
Well, and I know this came up with the other podcast too, like the B5 for the first time guys were complaining that they got spoiled because of the intros. But if you go back and you look at some of the stuff JMS has brought up, because I can't remember where, but he brought up the whole intro, and he sees the intros as basically, just an introduction to the book itself, like the dust cover. You're just going to read that stuff, and that's just part of it. So it's not really a spoiler. It's just an introduction to the universe. But I completely get that it's something that if you don't know what you're looking for, that's something that definitely stands out. So let's get into the shadows and Vorlons more. What is the lifespan of a shadow and a Vorlon? And I had to go look it up in my trusty encyclopedia. We don't know. It lists the shadow lifespan as unknown, maybe immortal, and the Vorlon's unknown as well. Anyone else know anything else that I'm forgetting on that?
I'd imagine they're extremely long-lived.
And we also know they can hibernate too. So is it always really Kosh in the suit? For now.
Yeah.
It won't be.
It is, and I think this ties into the next question, which is, are there factions within the Vorlon? And I think the short answer is, well, there's at least one faction, and it's one Vorlon, and he keeps coming back to B5.
Right. Yeah, we'll find out, a little bit later that, other Vorlons feel differently, than Kosh does. Kosh is probably unique, perhaps, I would imagine. So the other Vorlons may all feel the same. I don't know, but we like you said, Mike, to your point, it's definitely that there is a faction of one
at least.
Yeah.
It's probably unlikely that he's the only one. I mean, just like it's probably unlikely that every shadow is evil, honestly. I mean,
I think he definitely is in the minority though, because we'll see afterwards that the Vorlons just start weighing waste to people. So if Kosh has a group, he is definitely not in a place to where he can, well, he's dead at that point, but he's not in a place where he can define policy.
Well, and we don't really know how many Vorlons there even are.
That's true.
There could be 10. There could be 6. There could be 2. We don't know.
Yeah, and a whole bunch of bioships, yeah. Why wasn't Kosh at the table of the War Council? And Sinclair talked about this, or maybe I can't remember if it was Sinclair or Sheridan. Kosh goes and where he wants to go, he does what he wants to do, and he just doesn't
get involved.
Yeah, he doesn't follow anyone else's agenda.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to get involved to that level.
Yeah, he's letting Delenn and Sheridan know what's going on, and that's all he needs to do. So what does Kosh mean by he has always been there and so has Sheridan? Well, that's one that we really don't get a full answer on. We do know from in the beginning, the movie, that Kosh has been around for a freaking long time. And Kosh actually is at B4 when Sinclair goes back and becomes Valen. But we never really get a true answer of why he says Sheridan has always been there. And I know Blake, who had to drop off, he mentioned a theory to me today because we just got the press release with the animated movie, and we now know Sheridan's going to be jumping through time as part of the show. And he's like, what if we actually get that answer now? That Sheridan has actually always been around B5 and around the universe because he's bouncing around through time a la Sam Beckett. And I think that'd be kind of fun to close that little loop because we never really got an answer on why Sheridan has always been there. Okay, predictions, guys. Shit's about to pop off.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. We're getting close. The Earth Civil War is coming.
Can't wait. It's my favorite part of this series.
Mm-hmm. The Shadows are preparing Earth for invasion with some help from EarthGov.
Thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, not long term, not short term though. So at the end of the day, the Shadows hope that they're going to, lay waste to the galaxy and reset everything as they always do with their cycles. But they're not like planning on invading Earth tomorrow. They're just trying to screw around with folks. And sooner or later, everyone's going to be to a place where they can just have their way with them. But I don't think it's like they're amassing their forces or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Shadows are well aware that they're not invulnerable, as others seem to think. And, if they came in and caused too much of a ruckus and did it out in the open, enough races could team up and it give them a fight, and they're not interested in that. It's not how they want to play it.
Mm-hmm. This is prophetic. The Shadows will use a Centauri homeworld just like they used the Narn homeworld in the last war. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what Londo's vision is the Shadows staging on Centauri. And of course, what we don't know yet is Londo's final fuck you to the Shadows is he will blow up the island that they're staging their ships on. And that's when Morden dies because he gets captured and Veer gets to wave at him.
Do we know if there's any particular reason why the Shadows picked the Narn homeworld as their staging area before?
I don't know if it's ever called out, but I think part of it is, remember, the Narns had telepaths, and we know the Shadows wiped them out. Now, is that the reason why they picked Narn to land on? I don't know, but it was definitely, it's either chicken and the egg. Either they landed there because of the telepaths, or when they landed there, they took out the telepaths.
Well, I was going to say, and on the same token, yeah, then they're looking at Centauri, and we know that the Centauri have telepaths. So.
I'm going to guess it has something to do with the fact that they had telepaths and were not spacefaring yet.
Easy to pick on.
Yep.
Well, and I think that's the reason why the Shadows use a Centauri is just pure vindictive, like, we're just going to mess with you. Oh, Londo, you don't want part of us? Well, here we go.
Somebody said something earlier, and I maybe have forgotten this plot point about putting telepaths onto Shadow ships.
Mm-hmm.
What was that about? Because
telepaths pilot the ships. They are at the heart of every Shadow ship. That's the screaming you hear with the Shadows. We find out that it's actually a telepath screaming.
So I guess my thinking was that perhaps in the previous war, the Narn actually had the most telepaths. And so it wasn't so much that they were wiped out as the supply was exhausted.
They were using a farm.
Perhaps now the Centauri are the ones who have the most per capita telepaths.
Could be.
Do we know of any other races besides the Minbari, the humans, and the Centauri who have telepaths? Is it just the main races?
I don't know if it's ever called out. I don't know. I don't want to say one way or the other because I don't know.
Okay.
If any of the non-aligned folks have telepaths or not, I can't remember because if it was, it's like a one-off line somewhere that I just can't remember.
So, this is interesting to me too because it makes me wonder where did telepaths originate from, and I felt like there was maybe some speculation or discussion about whether the Vorlons actually introduced telepaths.
It's called out. The Vorlons seed telepaths. They're the ones.
So why would they be seeding telepaths, which they know that their enemy needs?
Because they're also what stops the Shadow Fleet. That's what we found out in Ship of Tears, is that the telepaths also can stop a Shadow ship. So they stick Minbari telepaths on white stars and other human telepaths too, and they can shut down the shadow ships and let them be destroyed.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It's like both sides vying for the same resource in a way,
and it goes back to the Shadows and Vorlons don't want to beat each other. They have the same goal, and that is to reset the universe every few thousand years to let the good races survive and the bad races burn. So they're okay with both pitting each other off each other because at the end of the day, they don't care.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So Morden will go back on his word regarding separating the galaxy. He said so in the episode. He said treaties are just treaties. And we also know, too, that Morden will go back on his word with Londo because he's told Londo, okay, we're done, we're good. And if you ever need us again, we'll be around. And then he's going to go kill Adira to make sure Londo comes back to him. So Morden has no intention of leaving Londo alone either. B5 is going to have a hard time getting resources from Earth. What do you think, Kevin?
Oh, absolutely they will.
You just said the Civil War is your favorite part, so...
Yeah, no, there's actually some humorous stuff that comes out of that. You know, the scene with Garibaldi trying to get his package for his Banya Kauta supplies, I think it was that.
Well, that was earlier, but there's other ones. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay, but yeah, they
there's other ones though. Yeah, where they're like they don't, and we that's where the League of Non-Aligned Worlds comes in and says we'll supply B5, we'll make B5 our home.
That's right. It wasn't the Banya Kauta, but it was other stuff from.
I was gonna say, geez, did they actually do a callback to the Banya Kauta later in the series?
It was so good, we did it again. And you can find how to make that by checking out Blake's cooking episode, which is on our YouTube. At some point, Ivanova will command B5 because Sheridan will be off fighting the war.
Oh, unfortunately not.
That's the way it was supposed to be.
Right.
So Ivanova is going to be just as involved in the Civil War and the Shadow War that Sheridan is. And in fact, Ivanova is going to play a very important role because she's going to be the one who communicates with the first ones through the Great Machine and all that good stuff. So she is definitely going to have a part in it. But yeah, season 5, Ivanova was supposed to be commander or captain of B5. But when Claudia Christian left the show, we get Susan Lockley, which interesting. The B5 animated movie, Lockley and Ivanova are listed as being voiced by obviously their original actors. Do we get the first meetup between Ivanova and Lockley in this? I don't know. We'll see.
You know, one of the names I didn't see in the animated was Veer's name for a voice actor, and that pains me. I hope they are going to have Veer in it, but
and the press release did say a cast that includes. So I don't think they listed everybody out. And also JMS didn't write the press release. Warner's did. So I don't know, but I think you almost have to have, if they're going to recast Delenn, G'Kar, Franklin, Garibaldi, I think you almost at that point, everyone from the original show is going to be in there. So
yeah. Do we know that they did recast?
Yes, because on the press release they gave the new voice actors for G'Kar, Franklin, Delenn, and Garibaldi.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And Zathras, and a new voice, and actually Jeffrey Sinclair, and the guy voicing Zathras is voicing Jeffrey Sinclair as well. So Sinclair is in the movie as well.
Yeah, and Andrea Thompson wasn't on that list either, but I'm going to guess she probably is not going to be involved or have that character involved, but who knows.
I did notice, and we record these episodes a few weeks in advance, so this happened a while ago. JMS actually came out finally on Twitter like yesterday and said that the intention with the Talia Ivanova scene in the bedroom was that they had slept together. And he flat out said he actually went to Claudia Christian and Andrea Thompson and asked them, "Are you good with this?" And they said, "Yeah, we're gung ho, we're in." So that was absolutely it was meant to be that they had formed a relationship. The Shadows are going to figure out that the galaxy knows that they're back because of the White Stars or White Star. Again, when we see it here, and we talked about this a couple episodes ago, the Shadows are arrogant. Morden's like, fine. They don't really know what we're doing. It's fine. The Shadows don't really worry that much. Delenn's more worried about the Shadows knowing about them than the Shadows are worried about the other thing. And that's why they're going to lose. because they're not going to expect Sheridan to just walk into Zaha Doom and blow the shit up.
And Sheridan is a Vorlon meat puppet. No. I mean, he does become a little bit more influenced by Kasha's tutelage throughout this season, but he's definitely doing things on his own, and he's not a meat puppet for the Vorlons.
We'll go ahead and wrap it up there. And again, next week we'll be talking convictions and talking about Londo and Jakar having a lovely moment in the elevator. So until then, be sure to like, subscribe, follow, do all that stuff, and check out our social medias. And please leave a review. I am Scott, and with me has been
Mike
and Kevin.
Blimey, these are hard to get on. Let's face it, you got to be a man to wear tights.